Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I don't know how to begin this episode. I am in awe and very grateful to all of you who watched episode 145. Thank you so very much for all your likes, which to date hit 4.3K. I would also like to thank all the new subscribers and welcome you guys to the OC community. Thank you all so very much for helping this channel pass the 5K mark. This is such an exciting time. I also would like to thank Real Truth for the $5 super thanks. I was blown away when I saw the donation, and the neat thing was that Real Truth followed last week's viral video up to the 200K view. He was just as hyped as I was. Okay, before I get too carried away, I think we should get started with today's episode. Today, I will be sharing 2 stories sent in as a result of last week's video. I hope more trickle in over the next couple of weeks. And I also have another encounter story I dug up to share with you all. If you have an encounter story that you would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with like-minded people. Now sit back and relax as we begin with today's encounters. This first encounter takes place in the summer of 1977. We're going to be heading to eastern Rock Hill County, Pennsylvania. This story was submitted by Hector B., and it goes like this. Back in the summer of 1977, when I was a Boy Scout, camping in Rock Hill Forest in Pennsylvania, my scout troop number 406 went on a night hike. We all heard a loud, screaming, deep sound coming from a short wooden hill, and a bad smell was in the air. The scoutmaster took no chances to continue hiking, so he made us turn around and return back to our campsite. That experience was very frightening. The scouts were worried that it might be a large bear. At that time, I wasn't aware about this Bigfoot creature. When we returned back to camp, some of the scouts and myself stood up until daybreak, but nothing happened during the night. The assistant scout master, Mr. Torres, stated that it might have been an injured animal or someone playing a prank. We'll never know since we packed up 2 days later and returned back to the city of Jersey City, New Jersey. That's the truth. I asked Hector if he can further describe the sounds they heard that night, and Hector's response was as follows. The sounds were like howling, screaming, high-volume growl. This next one takes place in November 2022, and it takes place in Toronto, Ontario, somewhere near Ontario Place. I did get permission to use his first name as well as the video clip that he forwarded. Hi Venka, my name is Chris. I work in the Toronto film industry as a transportation driver. Back in November of 2022, I was returning some equipment to Williams White's in Etobicoke. I looked up and noticed 2 V-shaped objects hovering over Toronto, possibly Ontario Place. After alerting one of my employees nearby, I pulled out my phone to record some video. One of the objects vanished, but the other is clearly visible. I have yet to post this footage online. I went back and asked Chris how long the second object stayed motionless in the sky. Chris's response was, the second one vanished less than 1 minute after I stopped recording. I'm glad I pulled out my phone. So here's a still shot of what Chris captured. I am going to play a 30-second clip, and you're going to hear the audio and everything and background noise. But it's a pretty amazing video clip that he has here. So why don't we take a look at the clip right now?
Right there. Oh, there it is. Come on, focus. There you go. Right there. That's weird. Let's see if we go ahead and... Come on.
This is going to be the last story of the day, which takes place on May of 1987. We're going to be heading to southern Maricopa County, Arizona, and the nearest town is Gila Bend. I don't care what the skeptics say, I saw one in 1987. The encounter happened in May of 1987 at Painted Rock Reservoir Lake, about 30 miles northwest of Gila Bend, Arizona. My 4 friends and I were on a weekend fishing trip. I was the only one with a rifle, so I was responsible for the group. We arrived at the lake at about 5:30 p.m. and loaded ourselves down with our supplies to stay overnight right up against the face of the dam. As we walked through the distance of about 2,000 yards to the dam through salt cedar taller than us, we knew we were there for the night. No chance walking out in the dark. The dam was very high, and to the north of us was a sheer cliff a few hundred feet high. The dam to the east. South was impassable salt cedars, and one way to the west, which you did not try to navigate at night with all the rattlesnakes and other wild animals such as coyotes and mountain lions. As I said, we were there for the night. Just before the dark, we all saw Special Forces personnel on squad runners and 3-wheelers with high-powered weapons and tranquilizer guns, but we paid them no mind. We were after catfish. Everything was fine until about 2 o'clock in the morning. We heard strange rumbling in the bushes all around us, and it was rather unnerving. I was the only one armed, and that was only with a .410 single-shot shotgun. The noise stopped, and I dozed off. To my surprise, this was a night with a full moon. So besides our Coleman lantern, you could see well. As I was laying there half asleep, it all of a sudden got darker, and it awakened me to see this huge hairy thing not 10 feet above me. I shiver to this day just writing about it. All I said was, "Oh great, a damned Bigfoot." I thought I was dreaming, but I was not. There it was, right above my head. I got to my feet and it took off into the darkness. I couldn't be sure, but it looked like a female because it had what appeared to be mammaries. One of my friends was just outside the camp relieving himself, and I yelled to him to look out. He came running back into the camp scared to death. Evidently, he ran straight into it coming back to camp. By this time, we were all wide awake, and my other 3 friends were armed with nothing but hunting knives, and we all stood guard in all directions. We were boxed in, and no way out until light. Then came that god-awful yell, and we were absolutely scared out of our skins. The rumbling in the bushes returned, and then we heard the fish in the slough going crazy, and we found out why. Not 15 feet from us stood this huge creature in the middle of the water. This thing stood about 9 feet tall. I know this because I stand 6 feet tall, and in that water came right up to my neck, but on this creature it barely came up to its waist. We were terrified as it stood there looking at us. I did not want to shoot. God help me, because I wasn't sure. It looked almost human. I was keeping my rifle pointed at it just in case. Then our lantern started running low on fuel, and we had no backup except our fire. We soon found the bright lantern light was the only thing keeping it back. Lantern low on fuel, we decided to build a fire as high as we could and refueled the lantern fast. My friends did so, and I held a shotgun on it. Just as the lantern went out, it charged straight for me, so I fired at it point-blank range, dead in this thing's chest, but it did not go down. My friends got the lantern going again, and there it stood, holding the right side of its chest. It just looked at us, and then it turned and cut through the waist-high water 25 feet to the opposite shore in seconds, and it crashed through the trees, and it started yelling again. About this time, it was approximately 4:30 a.m. We were praying for the sun to rise so we could get out of there. When morning came, we investigated and we found the footprints and we found blood from whatever it was. We saw the hole this thing made when it crashed through the trees the night before, and it was big enough for us to walk through, no problem. We did not stick around. We got the hell out of there. As we made our way to my truck, we saw 2 Special Forces agents. One remarked to the other, well, at least one of those guys were smart enough to be armed. We said nothing. We got the heck out. Nobody believed us when we reported our encounter to the police and the game warden. Here's the funniest part. 2 days later, the game warden tried to arrest me for shooting an endangered species. When I told him, "You can go ahead and arrest me, but first you have to tell me what it was I allegedly shot." He then backed down from arresting me, but told me to stay where I could be found for further questioning. I swear I'm not making this up. It actually happened, and I really fell apart 2 weeks later on my birthday. My brother showed me a sketch of what we had seen that was not accurate deliberately. He would know, with me completing the sketch, he knew we had really had this encounter. To this day, it still scares me to death. I was 31 years old back then, but today I can still see and hear it as if it were yesterday. First off, I want to thank Hector for sending him his story and allowing me to share it. I truly appreciate it. I also want to thank Chris for not only giving us his story, but also showing us his video clip, which he took that day. Thank you so much for allowing me to share that. Lastly, I want to talk to this encounter story, which happened up in Painted Rock Reservoir. I found it very interesting that even prior to them moving into this one location, they had seen special forces on squad runners and 3-wheelers, etc. I found it interesting that he saw a female standing over him, but what we don't know was it a female that actually attacked him or them, or was it a male that attacked them? He does not mention that at all. The other thing I found interesting was the fact that it did attack. Was it surrounded? Was the special forces on the other side? I guess those are questions that we won't ever know. But a very intriguing story, to say the least. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me today. If these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you guys for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit the like button on your way out and smash the subscribe button if you're new to my channel. And again, everybody, thank you so much for all the views that we obtained for episode 145. Have yourselves a great weekend, and I hope to see you all next week, right here on Ontario Cryptids.